The Flora Wonder Blog, Spouting Botanical Latin. The year 2014 marked my 40th in horticulture, which seems odd to most women, who would guess me to be 38 or 39 years old at most. Actually, I used to do yard work. I guess that's horticulture. Before I formally began to work for a nursery in 1974, then for other nurseries, then eventually at my own. So I've been hacking away at bushes, loading trucks, and cashing your precious checks for a long time. While Buckle's nursery is far from perfect, I nevertheless feel that we are in our strongest position ever, and that is largely due to exceptional employees. Well, most of the time, who work at least twice as fast and smart as those of the competition. If I was stuck with the crews at other nurseries, I would have had to shut down and seek garden employment at a box store, or perhaps stop shaving and bathing and hold a begging cup at the freeway on-ramp. God bless. Be sure I constantly realize that my horticultural career is tenuous, that I'm only a record freeze, tornado, or devastating plague away from kaput. Add to that I must retain my mental faculties and good health to endure. I never would have guessed that as a kid mowing lawns and pruning hedges, that one day I would be spouting botanical Latin in a blog. I think the first Latin word to enter my personal diction, from Latin dicere, to say, was nana. And nana meant dwarf. If you were searching for a nana cultivar, you looked down rather than up. All employees learn that quickly. For those who don't, make a quick departure to the unemployment line. But nana is not Hoyle as a botanical term anymore, unless the species or cultivar was named before January 1st, 1959. Those thereafter, according to the International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, cannot use Latin names. So a cultivar name such as Picea pungens, Izeli fastigiata, is wrong. Very wrong. A company or person's name like Izeli is not illegal, though it is very poor form to encumber a plant with your name. It's very common though, isn't it? Speaking of fastigiata, as a cultivar name, is old hat as well, but it was probably the second Latin name that I learned. It is from Latin fastigium, for height, or for tapering to a point, as in a gable. Medieval Latin fastigiatus is lofty or peaked. In botany, it means to have closely bunched, erect, parallel branches. We used to grow Pinus strobus fastigiata, which develops into an odd, godly, large, and not so narrow tree. That old cultivar has been replaced with Pinus strobus Bennett's fastigiata, which is much more compressed, even though it too is poorly named. Pinus sylvestris glauca fastigiata is another pillar pine, but one not suited for a happy garden in Oregon unless the branches are tied up in winter. We continue to grow Pseudotsuga benziesii fastigiata, the hardy form of Douglas fir with steel blue foliage. There are a number of similar form plants as well, with names of erecta or erectus. I used to grow Hedra helix erecta until it eventually flopped. Erect is from Latin erectus, for upright, that form Latin erigere, to raise or set up, which developed from Latin e, for up, plus rigere, to keep straight. That reminds me that last fall I was very close to Erect, North Carolina, but I didn't know that it existed at that time. There, presumably, all the women are good-looking and all the men are vigorous and upstanding. The town is physically near the center of North Carolina, and it is the exact population center of the state. In fact, there's an official marker located at the ball field behind the store at the crossroad, to the left of the dugout closest to the store. I plan to visit the zip code 27341 someday, and I will also pay my respects to the nearby towns of Hemp, Lonely, and why not? Early in my career, I noticed that many plants were glauca, or glauca something, and they would often sell far more than green versions of the same species. I took glauca to be blue, as in the blue version of Cedrus atlantica glauca, whereas seedling grown Atlas cedars are usually blue-green. Likewise, Cunninghamia lanceolata glauca was the blue form of the China fir, and Pinus sembra glauca was the selected blue cultivar of the Swiss stone pine. Somewhat confusing is that there is glauca for the species name of the white spruce, as in Picea glauca albertiana conica for the dwarf Alberta spruce, or Picea glauca Ketch Harbor for a weeping form of spruce found in Nova Scotia. Though nurserymen and gardeners think of glaucous trees to be blue, the word rarely refers to the powdery white coating on their leaves, needles. This coating can actually be rubbed off, and one Oregon winter with 0-degree Fahrenheit temperatures and 40-mile-an-hour winds, the windward side of my blue spruces actually lost their white-blue coating, but it was produced again on the new growth in spring. Related words to glauca include glaucescens, glaucofolius, glaucoides, and glaucophilus. I don't have a clue to the origin of the name Corylopsis glaucophylla, a plant which I acquired years ago from the late Heronswood Nursery of Washington State, or even if it's a valid species. I assume that Lindera glauca from the same Heronswood Nursery is specifically named due to the silver blue on its leaves' undersides, but the various species, subspecies, or varieties of the Linda genus are rather muddled as well. Rosa glauca is grown for the gray-blue foliage more than for the simple flower, I think. Phylum is a noun, representing a division of the plant or animal kingdom, and the word is from Greek phylon, or phulon, meaning race or tribe. Plural of phylum is phyla, and as the major divisions of the kingdoms of living things, they are the second largest unit of biological classification of living things, ranking above a class. I learned this stuff at Forest Grove, Oregon High School, and I always appreciated that everything had its own designated cubbyhole, or at least it did in theory. So, we have order. The phylum in the above scheme should not be confused with another Greek word, phylon, for leaf. Chlorophyll is thus Greek chloros for green, and phyll for leaf. We've already discussed Corylopsis glaucophylla, but there are many other phyla or phylums, and one of my favorites is the Oregon big leaf maple, Acer macrophyllum. You might be interested to revisit my blog from 2 years ago with my search for the largest maple on Earth, world's champion big leaf maple topples. But finish this blog first. Acer macrophyllum is big, and macro is from Greek makros for long or large. Micro, on the other hand, is from Greek mikros for small, and one example is Azara microphylla variegata. Variegata is from Latin variegatus, which is the past participle of variere, and various is Latin for various, plus igere, which is similar to Latin agere, to drive. In Japanese, nishiki is a word for variegated, and we have examples of Toyama nishiki, Taiman nishiki, and Sagara nishiki, due to multicolored leaves. Nishiki can also mean rough, and one example is Nishikigawa, and the gawa part refers to a river. I don't know why Acer palmatum Hanami nishiki was so named, unless it refers to the reddish lobe tips on the spring growth. Pendula is an Italian word for Latin pendere, meaning to hang, as in women hanging pendants from their neck. The origin of the word depends is from Latin, D for down, and pendere to hang, because one must hang on for additional information. I think the first tree that I encountered with a pendula cultivar name was Cedrus atlantica glauca pendula, the weeping form of Atlas cedar. We no longer grow that cultivar as they are quite easy to produce, and they were being grown by the thousands in the Oregon nursery scene. The same was true for the weeping giant redwood, Sequoiadendron giganteum pendulum, where it quickly went from being a unique novelty to boringly ubiquitous. For what it's worth, pendula should be the plural form of pendulum. We grow, or have grown, over 50 different plants with pendula in the cultivar name. In addition, we also grow Betula pendula species, and a number of its cultivars. The European silver birch comes in all sizes, shapes, and colors, but there's not much of a market for them at Buckholtz Nursery, so production of them was quietly abandoned about 10 years ago. Some older cultivar specimens of Betula pendula, as well as other species of birch, are growing in the upper gardens at Flora Farm, and they are especially proactive in the winterscape. One could do worse than be a swinger of birches, according to Robert Frost. The vast majority of my nursery comes from Japan. In other words, Acer palmatum is from Japan, even though hundreds of cultivars were selected in America or Europe. I would have been in serious trouble if the foolish proposals had gained purchase 15 to 20 years ago. Namely, that one could only sell and plant native plants. Some people actually think that the exotic plants are evil and hazard to the purity of our earth. I regret that I have ivy and blackberries in my woods, to be sure, but I don't think that a purple ghost has ever harmed anyone or our ecosystem. In fact, I truly enjoy traveling around the world with my plants. In one modest garden, you can visit Japan, Cryptomeria japonica, China, Nyssa sinensis, Chile, Fragaria chiloensis, Germany, Mispilus germanica, Korea, Pinus coreensis, USA, Sorbus americana, Lebanon, Cedrus libani, Canada, Cercis candensis, Iran, Parotia persica, and many, many more. And you also get to know many fascinating people with your collection of exotics, such as George Forrest from Scotland, Rhododendron forestii, Ernest Henry Wilson from England, Populus wilsonii, Philip von Siebold from Germany, Magnolia sieboldi, Pierre Delavay, Osmanthus delaveyi, William Henry Brewer from the USA, Picea breweriana, and many, many more. All of these people are now dead, except that they live on with their plants in my collection. Really, plants are a cheap date, and many in my arboretum will outlive me. I'm really lucky to have met so many. If you are a specialty nursery or boutique garden center wanting the rare and exceptional plants your customers love, register as a wholesale customer on buckholtznursery.com today.